In this video, we're going to go over how to calculate the mean for grouped data. In other words, for data that we have put into classes where we have grouped a bunch of numbers together. So in this case, the data set we're going to be using is car fuel efficiency from a sample. This shows us how many cars had certain mile per gallon efficiencies based on what group they fall into. Now, first I want to point out here is I am in the same spreadsheet that we set up in the weighted mean video. So you can see over here I still have my weighted mean tab, and now I've made a new tab and I've titled it grouped mean. Now if you want to know how to change the titles, you can double click and you can edit the name right there. So you want to be in that same spreadsheet because we're building a spreadsheet that will be reusable and be able to do a lot of these calculations for us really efficiently. Now, next thing I want to do is this calculation is a little involved, so we really want to make sure we set it up correctly the first time so we don't have to keep redoing it. So first thing I want to do is put these headers here. I've got the class width up here, and that is a value that we will have to put into the spreadsheet each time we use it. And then I've got lower bound, upper bound, frequency, midpoint, and frequency times midpoint, which are all columns that are going to, for the most part, be calculated automatically for us. So first what we're going to do, we're going to enter in our lower bound here, that first lower bound, which is 7.5. And we're also going to enter in our class width, which in this case, to go from 7.5 to 12.5, is a width of 5. The reason we're doing this way is that now I can go ahead and I can use formulas in Excel to fill in the lower bound and upper bound for me. So to find the rest of the lower bounds, I can do equals, click on the 7.5, plus click on the 5. Now here's the thing. I want to always be using that 5. So hopefully remember, if I come up here and edit this formula, we can put dollar signs in, $B, $1, and that will lock in that cell so that it always refers to that 5. And now I'm going to drag that formula down, so click on it, hold in the bottom right corner, and drag that down quite a ways. I'm going to go down to like cell 18 or so. So now this will let us use about 15 groups if we ever have a data set that big. And we're going to do this very similar calculation to find the upper bound. Equals, click on the 7.5, plus, click on the 5, and again, edit that B1, so it's $B, $1, to lock in that 5. We can drag that down to the same spot, and now we have all of our lower and upper bounds that should match up with our groups over here. Now remember, the only numbers we've typed in so far that we'll have to retype in if we reuse this for a different problem is the 5, so I'm going to highlight that yellow, and the 7.5, so I'm going to highlight that yellow. The rest of them will update automatically. So like if I have a different problem where the class width is 8, all of these will update automatically. But for now, let's go back to 5. Okay. Next thing is the frequencies. Now these we're going to have to type in every time. So I'm just going to highlight this whole column yellow. And then go ahead and I'm going to enter that data. So that data is 3, 5, 15, 5, 2. Now it's okay that we have all of these groups over here that we're not using. That's going to be fine. Next, midpoint. This is the midpoint or the middle value of each class, of each group. So to find this, we're going to do a quick calculation. Put an equals sign, open parentheses, and we're going to add up the two boundaries of each group, so the lower bound plus the upper bound, and divide by 2. And that'll find the midpoint of each of these groups. And just like we've done before, we're going to go ahead, click on it, click and hold the bottom right corner and drag it down, and it will automatically calculate the midpoint of every group in our data set. And again, we don't have to redo that every time. That'll stay there and automatically update. Last column we have to fill in is the frequency times the midpoint, which is exactly what it sounds like. So we'll put equals click on the frequency times, click on the midpoint, hit enter, and we're going to drag that down. And now you'll notice we have a bunch of zeros here. If there were no frequencies, that's fine. And again, we don't have to touch this ever again. We only have to enter in these class width, the lower bound, and the frequencies. So we actually have done most of the calculations for finding the mean of this data set. The last thing we have to do is actually calculate the mean itself. So to do this, we have to find a couple totals. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to put a total row. The first total we have to find is the total frequency. So I'm going to do equals sum, open parentheses, and highlight the whole frequency column. Close parentheses, hit enter. The other sum we have to find is the frequency times the midpoint. So we equals sum, open parentheses, highlight this column, close parentheses, hit enter. And then to find the actual mean itself, we're going to go ahead and do a division problem. So equals the frequency times the midpoint total divided by the frequency total. And there's our grouped mean. So our mean for this grouped data set. So this is the average miles per gallon out of the cars in this data set. Approximately, it's a representation of it because we're using the midpoints to approximate each group. Now here's the nice thing about this spreadsheet. Because we have been careful and set this up with a bunch of formulas in it, instead of entering everything by hand, we can reuse this for a bunch of different data sets. So for example, if I did different samples of cars and all of these frequencies changed. So maybe we have a bunch of cars that have low miles per gallon now. 10, 7, 3, 1, 4. It recalculates everything for me. I don't have to do anything else. So only these highlighted cells are the ones we have to ever touch again, and it will always calculate that mean, that average for us.